Now, before we continue building additional implementation within this class, I want to circle back into the initialize function and talk a little bit about the keyword self. And this is the one that I'm referring to right here. We got self inside of the definition line for the initialize function, and I've used it here twice to assign the properties or the values of these two properties, name and students. Now, what does this mean? Well, I'm gonna explain this by writing out a little bit of code inside of the shell window and creating a couple of instances of the course class or the course object. So here, inside my shell, I'm gonna create a new instance of course. Now I gotta give it a name, right? And that's required of us. We know that we got name right there. So if I hit my enter key, I get a new instance of the course class, and it's assigned to C1, right? C1 holds that value. Now if I create another one here, C2, and I make this a course, and this is going to be HTML, hit my enter key. So now I've got two instances of the course class. I've got C1 and I've got C2. Now, this is where self comes into play. We need to be able to distinguish that these are actually two different instances of the course class. That C1 has its own properties, C2 has its own properties. Okay? So if I say C1.name, we get Python. If I see C2.name, we get HTML. They are two different instances, and that keyword self essentially refers to the bond between the class and the specific instance of the class. So that when I run C1.name, it finds the appropriate self and its associated value. C1's name value, C2's name value, and so on. The idea of classes is that we create the code once, we set up the blueprint. Remember talking about that earlier. We got the blueprint, the implementation of this object and how it looks and it behaves and so on. But now you've created it once and you just reuse it. And self makes it possible that we can have multiple instances and it doesn't get confused between all of them. You refer to the class and you refer to its instances properties. That's it. Now, if you got any questions on that, that's a very important concept. Any questions, something not clear there, jump into the Q&A section, ask your questions. I mean, you're right there. I'm there to help you out. I can give you some other examples as well. But it makes it possible that you can create multiple instances and each of them will have their own properties. All right, so try that out if you haven't done it already. Get a little bit clearer understanding of self, create a couple instances, C1, C2, C3, C4, whatever, and then give them different course names and double check them, make sure that they are appropriately tied to the correct names and the correct instances.